The sleek alien ships hovered in Earth's orbit, casting an eerie shadow over the bustling cities below. For weeks, diplomatic channels had been abuzz with chatter about the Xantari, a name spoken in whispers across the galaxy. A technologically advanced species, the Xantari were rumored to have conquered entire star systems with ease. And yet, here they were, sending a delegation to Earth, offering peace. The human delegation stood ready. The tension was palpable in the air of the command center, where General Sarah Lawson, a decorated war hero, paced impatiently in front of a massive screen showing the Xantari's fleet in orbit. Beside her stood Dr. Malcolm Quinn, a scientist who had spent years studying alien life and systems, though he was deeply skeptical of the Xantari's peaceful intentions. Next to him, Ava Hargrove, a skilled hacker who had previously brought down terrorist networks, checked and rechecked her communication systems. Lastly, there was Darius Kell, a diplomatic veteran, calm and composed, but with an edge of unease creeping through his professionalism. "Their fleet is massive," General Lawson remarked, eyes narrowing. "But I still don't buy this peaceful front. What's their angle?" "I'm with you, General," Dr. Quinn replied, his voice betraying the skepticism that had only grown since he'd first heard the news of the Xantari delegation. The Xantari are an expansionist empire. If they wanted peace, why would they bring this much firepower? It doesn't add up. Darius placed a hand on his chin thoughtfully. "Maybe they've realized something about us. Peace could be a way to assess how much of a threat we truly are. If they underestimate us, it could backfire." Just as the words left his mouth, the screen flickered, signaling an incoming transmission. The Xantari ship's commander, a towering figure with pale, almost translucent skin, appeared, his cold, piercing eyes staring into the camera. His voice, deep and mechanical, reverberated through the room. "We come in peace, humans. The Xantari offer no harm, but seek an alliance with your species. Our empire has seen your growth. We are willing to share knowledge and resources." The room fell silent. The Xantari had always been known for their cunning and strategic minds, but their offer was unexpected. Sarah, despite her hardened military experience, could feel the weight of the words. Peace sounded too good to be true, and yet the stakes were enormous. "Why now?" Sarah asked, her voice firm. "After centuries of war and isolation, why would you choose peace now?" The Xantari commander didn't flinch. "You are not as primitive as we once believed. Humanity's technological advancements are impressive. We wish to test your potential, to see what your species could offer." A brief moment of quiet filled the room. The team exchanged uneasy glances. They knew what the Xantari were capable of. They had left their mark on countless worlds. So why extend this olive branch? Before Sarah could respond, the transmission cut out abruptly. The screen went black, and a series of alarms blared across the room. "Something's wrong," Ava muttered, fingers flying over her console. "They've locked us out. We can't get access to their systems anymore." General Lawson's expression hardened. "Prepare for the worst. We're not dealing with an open hand here. I'll make sure Earth is ready for whatever comes next." As she spoke, the first Xantari ship suddenly opened fire on a remote human outpost on a nearby planet, instantly vaporizing the city and leaving behind a trail of destruction. The room exploded into chaos. The humans had been fooled into believing the Xantari sought peace, but in that moment, it became clear the invasion had already begun, and humanity was now fighting for its survival. The devastation from the surprise attack on the distant colony reverberated across Earth. The Xantari had acted with brutal precision, wiping out a thriving human settlement in mere moments. There was no time for hesitation, no time for negotiation. Humanity was officially at war. General Sarah Lawson, now in charge of coordinating Earth's defense, watched the live feed of the smoking wreckage on her screen, her jaw clenched. It wasn't just a city that had been destroyed. It was a symbol of humanity's fragile foothold in the galaxy. Thousands of innocent lives lost in an instant. This was the beginning of something much darker, and the Xantari weren't going to stop at one colony. "We can't let them keep pushing us around," she muttered, standing tall in the command center. "We've been given a chance to fight back. We'll make them regret this." In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Malcolm Quinn, still processing the magnitude of the attack, looked at the data streaming through his monitors. "Sarah, we're still underestimating them. The Xantari are advanced in ways we can't fathom. Their weapons, we haven't seen anything like it." Ava Hargrove, her fingers flying over the console as she intercepted communications, leaned in. "They've already sent more ships. Big ones this time. I'm tracking their movements. They're heading for Earth. We need to be ready," Darius Kell added, his voice steady, but there was a trace of worry in his eyes. "We can't just defend Earth's orbit. We need to hit them where it hurts. Disrupt their command chain. That's the only way we have a chance." A plan was quickly set in motion. Earth's defenses were a patchwork of hastily assembled technologies. Humans had never prepared for an invasion on this scale, but General Lawson knew they had something the Xantari didn't expect: human ingenuity. For days, the humans scrambled to reinforce their defenses, but as the Xantari continued their assault on other colonies, it became increasingly clear that the invaders were relentless. The Xantari flagship, a towering behemoth of a ship, entered Earth's atmosphere, its guns primed to destroy anything in its path. It was a moment of truth. Humanity had no choice but to fight. General Lawson addressed her newly formed resistance group, a ragtag team of soldiers, civilians, and scientists who had quickly banded together. "This is it," she said, her voice cold and resolute. "If we can't stop that ship, we don't stand a chance. We're fighting not just for Earth, but for our survival as a species." With determination in their eyes, the human force launched a series of guerrilla strikes on Xantari supply lines in space, using the few human ships available to launch daring raids. It was a desperate measure. No one was sure they'd survive, but it was their only option. And then came the surprise. In the middle of the chaos, one of the most unlikely heroes emerged: a group of untrained civilians from a small colony on the edge of the solar system. These civilians had been using salvaged Xantari tech to fight back in their own way. They'd been experimenting with the alien technology, and now their efforts paid off. They had hacked into a Xantari destroyer's defense grid, allowing human ships to fire directly at its weak spots. The resulting explosion was nothing short of a miracle, a victory that no one had expected. "Looks like they underestimated us," Ava said with a rare smile, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. It wasn't enough to win the war, but it was a major victory. For the first time since the Xantari arrived, humanity had struck back with force. The Xantari had assumed their superior technology would guarantee a swift victory, but they hadn't counted on humanity's adaptability, resourcefulness, and relentless will to survive. But even as the humans celebrated their unexpected victory, the war was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The Xantari had begun to realize they were dealing with something far more dangerous than they had originally thought, and they would stop at nothing to crush it. The victory over the Xantari flagship was a glimmer of hope in a war that seemed overwhelmingly one-sided, but Sarah Lawson knew that the battle was far from over. The humans had struck back, but the Xantari were far from finished. What they had learned from the defeat would make them more dangerous. If humanity didn't uncover the truth behind their invaders, their triumphs would be fleeting. It was in the aftermath of the battle that Dr. Malcolm Quinn uncovered something that could change everything. During the raid on the destroyed Xantari ship, he had managed to salvage a set of alien data crystals, encrypted beyond anything human tech could break. But Quinn, using his knowledge of alien systems, worked feverishly to crack them. Late one night in the makeshift research lab, Quinn's eyes widened as he deciphered the final layer of encryption. On the screen before him, ancient Xantari texts began to translate, revealing a shocking revelation. Humanity was not an accident. "Sarah," Quinn shouted, his voice shaking with urgency. "You need to see this." Sarah entered the lab, her face hardened with determination, but now tinged with a spark of curiosity. She had seen too many battles, too many lives lost, to care much about ancient myths. But Quinn's tone was different. She leaned over his shoulder and read the decoded message. "Humanity, engineered by a lost alien species," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Quinn nodded, his face pale. "According to this, humans were created millennia ago by an alien race, one that was wiped out before they could complete their plans. This creator race, as the Xantari call them, implanted human genetics with dormant traits. The traits that, if activated, could make humans a superpower capable of reshaping the galaxy." Sarah absorbed the gravity of his words. But the Xantari knew this. They've been watching us, manipulating us from the shadows for centuries. They'd been suppressing our potential all along. "Yes," Quinn replied, "and that's why they're here. The Xantari are terrified of what we could become. This war isn't just a conquest. It's a mission to keep us from evolving into something they can't control." Sarah's mind raced. She knew the Xantari were powerful, but this revelation added a new layer of urgency. The empire that had subjugated countless planets had been terrified of something as simple as the potential of human evolution. The Xantari, despite their technological superiority, were afraid of what humanity could achieve. "We need to unlock those latent abilities," Sarah said, determination burning in her eyes. "We need to learn what they feared about us before they wipe us out completely." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "Do you think we can? The technology to activate those traits might be beyond us. But if we don't, the Xantari will keep pushing us back until there's nothing left." Ava Hargrove, who had been working nearby, overheard the conversation and walked up to the group. Her fingers danced over the holographic interface. "So let me get this straight," she said with a wry grin. "We're humans, engineered to be superpowered, and the Xantari are afraid of us unlocking those abilities, and you're telling me we got a fighting chance." "More than that," Sarah replied, her voice resolute. "We're going to make sure they regret underestimating us." The team spent the following days researching the ancient texts further, uncovering bits of information that hinted at the dormant abilities locked inside human DNA. These abilities could take many forms: enhanced physical strength, mental prowess, perhaps even reality-altering powers. But the key to unlocking them remained hidden, buried in the alien archives they had only just begun to understand. But as they dug deeper, the real danger became apparent. The Xantari were not the only threat. There were others, forces who had been watching humanity for millennia, and their interest was more than just academic. One night, as the team huddled over the final decoded fragments, a transmission crackled through their communication channels. The voice was unfamiliar, cold and distant, yet unmistakable in its authority. "You've discovered the truth," it said, "but you are not the first to attempt to unlock your potential, and you will not be the last." The transmission ended abruptly. Eva quickly tried to trace the signal, but it was gone. The mysterious warning, however, was more than enough to send a chill through the room. Something else was out there, and they had been watching humanity's every move. The discovery of humanity's engineered origins had shaken the core of everything the Resistance thought they knew about their place in the universe. As the Xantari advanced, humanity's once fragmented efforts to resist their invaders began to shift. No longer was this a mere fight for survival. It was a fight for a future where humanity wasn't just fighting for its life, but fighting to reclaim its destiny. General Sarah Lawson stood at the front of the hastily constructed command center, staring down at a holographic map of Earth and its surrounding colonies. Tensions were at an all-time high, but this time, there was a spark of hope in the air. They weren't just fighting back, they were starting to understand what they were truly capable of. "The Xantari want to suppress us because they know what we can become," she said, addressing the diverse group of leaders and strategists gathered around the table. We're not just defending our homes. We're fighting for a future where humanity stands on equal, or even superior, terms with any empire. We need to unite the fractured resistance forces across the globe, pull in the remaining unaligned factions, and take the fight to them. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Humans were not strangers to division. Governments, military factions, and various colonies had long been at odds with one another. Yet now there was a unifying force, the knowledge that humanity's future depended on a united front. Every faction, no matter how small, knew they had a stake in the survival of the species. Darius Kell, the seasoned diplomat who had worked tirelessly behind the scenes to forge alliances, leaned forward, his face serious. "I've spoken with key leaders from the colonies. The unity we need is forming, but trust is fragile. We'll have to walk a fine line between showing strength and maintaining cooperation. If we come in too heavy-handed, the alliances will break apart." Sarah nodded. "Then we give them something to believe in. We show them that humanity is more than a collection of nations and colonies. We're a force, unstoppable, not by our weapons alone, but by our will to survive and our potential." The room fell silent as the weight of Sarah's words settled in. They weren't just fighting an invading alien force. They were fighting for a future where humanity could stand tall in the galaxy. But the question remained, could they truly unite every faction in time? Across the world, the resistance leaders met, some with enthusiasm and others with doubt. The realization that humanity's true power was yet untapped began to spread. The Exanteri had spent centuries oppressing humanity, but now the tide was turning. Yet, not everyone was so willing to believe. Fear and distrust ran deep, especially after the attack on the colonies, which had left Earth's leadership divided and fragmented. Ava Hargrove, ever the pragmatist, had been digging through Exanteri communications in search of weaknesses. Her eyes never left the screens as she spoke. "We need to know more about their strategy, their weaknesses. It's clear they've been holding something back. If we can find it, we'll have a real shot at hitting them where it hurts." Dr. Quinn, who had been poring over ancient alien texts, looked up from his work, his brow furrowed. What if this is about more than just humanity's potential? The Exanteri might fear us because we're the key to unlocking something even bigger. If we're going to truly defeat them, we need to understand what that something is. Sarah turned to them, her voice steely with purpose. "Then we find it. We find that key. We may not have all the answers yet, but we have something the Exanteri don't. Unity, the ability to think beyond ourselves and to fight for something greater. We've been scattered and broken for too long, but now we come together as one." As the final plan to unite Earth's resistance forces took shape, one thing became clear. Humanity was about to unleash its true potential. They would no longer be passive observers in the galactic struggle. They would be active players, shaping the future of the universe. However, their newfound unity would soon be put to the test. As the alliance solidified, the first joint strike force of humans from all walks of life, military and civilian alike, prepared to launch a direct attack on the Exanteri's forward command center in the solar system. But as preparations were underway, an ominous message echoed across their communication channels. "We know what you've discovered, and we are coming for you. All of you." The Exanteri were no longer just invaders. They were hunting humanity, and they weren't alone. As the human resistance began to solidify, so did the looming threat of the Exanteri. Despite their unyielding advances, there was an undeniable truth now echoing in every strategy room and war council. Humanity was evolving. They were learning how to fight back, not just with weapons, but with the untapped potential that was buried deep within their very DNA. But there was something else, something darker, hidden behind the Exanteri's attack. The message they had received weeks earlier, warning them that they were coming for all of you, haunted the minds of the resistance leaders. Who was the they the Exanteri spoke of? And what did it mean for humanity's survival? General Sarah Lawson stood at the forefront of Earth's United Military Command, now made up of forces from every corner of the planet. The council was tense. They had just finished a debrief on their upcoming assault on the Xantari's forward command center when the holographic map flickered and a new image appeared on the screen. It wasn't just Xantari ships. A fleet, far more advanced than the Xantaris, appeared on the edge of the solar system. They were massive, unlike any human or Xantari ship seen before, with sleek, dark hulls and unnatural energy signatures. Sarah's heart sank. Who the hell are these guys? Darius Kell, who had been monitoring intergalactic intelligence, leaned in. I've never seen anything like it. It's not Xantari tech, and we know they control most of the known galaxy. This is something else. Ava Hargrove's voice was grim as she scanned the fleet's trajectory. They're heading straight for Earth. Whoever they are, they're not here to negotiate. Dr. Malcolm Quinn, deep in thought, murmured, what if the Xantari were merely the pawns in a much larger game? What if they'd been sent to soften us up for something worse? The implications were too enormous to grasp. For a brief moment, Sarah felt the weight of the truth. Humanity had just taken its first step into a cosmic war. The Xantari were nothing but a small part of something much bigger, and now humanity was caught right in the middle. The fleet arrived with alarming speed, and within hours, their ships deployed drones that scoured the surface of Earth. These drones were unlike anything the human forces had ever encountered. Armed with devastating energy weapons, they wiped out outposts with terrifying efficiency, leaving behind nothing but scorched Earth. Despite humanity's best efforts to intercept them, the enemy ship's shields were impervious to their weapons. The world watched in horror as the unknown invaders made their presence known. Global leaders, who had just begun to recover from the Xantari invasion, were forced to confront the reality of this new enemy. Panic spread, and fear gripped the hearts of billions. The threat was no longer just about surviving a war. It was about extinction. In the command center, Sarah met with her senior staff. The room was heavy with the realization that their preparations for war with the Xantari had been misplaced. The fight for humanity's future had taken an unexpected turn, and there was no turning back. We need to find out everything we can about these new forces, Sarah ordered. Ava, any luck on tracking their communication? Ava's face tightened as she stared at her screens. Not yet. They're using a communication system we can't even begin to crack. It's like they don't want us to know anything about them. Dr. Quinn, who had been examining the alien texts, spoke up cautiously. What if they are part of the lost creator race mentioned in the Xantari archives? The ones who supposedly engineered humanity. If the Xantari are pawns, these beings could be something much more dangerous, something far older and more powerful. Darius shifted uneasily. So you're saying this is all connected? The Xantari, humanity's origins, and these new invaders? Quinn nodded, a solemn look crossing his face. I fear it's more than just connected. I think humanity was never meant to thrive. These beings, whoever they are, may have created humanity for a purpose that we've only just begun to uncover. Suddenly, a new transmission interrupted their thoughts. The screen flickered, and a figure appeared on the holographic display. It was an alien, unlike any they had seen before. Its features were humanoid, but its eyes glowed with an unnatural, ominous light. It spoke in a language that made the room grow cold. You have been warned. The time for your existence is at an end. The reckoning is here. The transmission ended abruptly. Sarah's heart raced. The attack on Earth by the Xantari had been bad enough. But this was something far worse. The unknown invaders weren't here just to conquer. They were here to destroy. But Sarah, along with the rest of humanity, knew one thing. They had no choice but to fight. In the days following the chilling transmission from the mysterious invaders, fear gripped the Earth more fiercely than ever before. The new fleet had settled into orbit, surrounding the planet with an impenetrable blockade. The world's military forces had been preparing for a direct confrontation with the Xantari, but now they were forced to shift their focus entirely. This new enemy was not just technologically superior. Their presence seemed to suggest a deeper, darker purpose, one that humanity could not yet fully understand. The Resistance had been thrust into a position it had never anticipated, not just defending against an invasion, but fighting for the survival of humanity's future against a seemingly unstoppable force. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, General Sarah Lawson was resolute. "We've fought for survival before," Sarah said during a video briefing, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "But this isn't just about surviving anymore. This is about reclaiming our future. We don't know who these invaders are or what they want. But we do know one thing. We won't go down without a fight." The room was silent. The Resistance leadership was still processing the scope of the threat, but there was an unmistakable shift in their attitudes. This was no longer just a struggle against foreign invaders. This was a cosmic reckoning. Malcolm Quinn, who had been studying the Xantari archives and the ancient alien texts, stood up slowly, his expression grim. "There's something more to this than we've realized. The Xantari may have feared humanity's potential, but these invaders, they're not just here to crush us. I believe they've been watching us for far longer. And if what I'm reading in these texts is true, humanity's evolution, the latent power hidden in our DNA, could be the key to turning the tide." Ava Hargrove, who had been silently observing the growing desperation in the room, spoke up. "You're saying humanity has some kind of hidden power that could give us a fighting chance?" Quinn nodded, though his face was lined with concern. "Yes, according to the archives, the creator race, the same beings who engineered humanity, left behind a legacy, a blueprint for unlocking dormant genetic abilities. It's not just about physical strength or intelligence. It could be far more than that, something that could level the playing field against our enemies." The room fell into an uneasy silence as the gravity of Quinn's words sank in. For years, humanity had been unaware of the true potential within them, suppressed by the interference of the Xantari, and possibly by these mysterious invaders. Now the question was, could humanity unlock its true potential in time to fight back? "We need to know more," Sarah said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We don't have the luxury of time. The longer we wait, the stronger they get." As Quinn began to delve deeper into the alien archives, uncovering fragments of ancient knowledge, something began to stir within humanity's resistance. It wasn't just their weapons or technology that could turn the tide. It was their unity, their relentless drive to survive, and the untapped abilities hidden within their very genes. In secret labs across the globe, human scientists and researchers worked tirelessly to unlock these dormant traits. They began experimenting with advanced genetic therapy and ancient techniques to activate latent abilities. Their early trials were met with mixed results. Some individuals experienced heightened reflexes or enhanced strength, while others showed signs of telepathic abilities, vivid dreams of ancient knowledge, and even glimpses of manipulation over energy fields. One subject, a young woman named Elena Kerr, was one of the first to experience a significant change. She had been a regular soldier, a part of the resistance from the beginning. But after undergoing a series of experimental treatments, she found herself able to manipulate the electromagnetic fields around her. With just a thought, she could generate blasts of energy, creating powerful shockwaves that stunned anyone within range. Ava and Darius observed Elena's progress, stunned by the potential now unfolding before them. "This changes everything," Ava said, her eyes wide with realization. "If we can unlock these abilities in enough people, we might have a chance." But with this new power came new risks. The resistance was on the brink of something monumental, but they were also walking a dangerous line. They were activating abilities that had been dormant for millennia, and the consequences of unleashing them could be far more unpredictable than they realized. Meanwhile, the mysterious invaders continued to observe from orbit, their ships unmoving but ever present. The tension was palpable. Every human, from the leaders in the command centers to the civilians hiding in underground bunkers, knew that the coming conflict would determine the fate of humanity. Sarah Lawson, now more determined than ever, stood before her assembled forces. "We have no choice but to push forward. We will unlock our potential, and we will use it to take the fight to them. It's not just about winning a war. It's about claiming our place in the galaxy. This is humanity's moment." As humanity's hidden power began to awaken, the unknown invaders, who had once seemed so distant and invincible, were no longer the only threat to fear. The true battle was about to begin, and humanity's future, uncertain as it may have been, was now in their hands. The time for preparation was over. Humanity's resistance had spent months unlocking the hidden potential buried deep within their DNA, and now the fruits of their labor were on the cusp of being unleashed. The once fragmented forces, united under the banner of survival, were now ready to face the unknown invaders head-on. What had once seemed impossible, a fighting chance, was now within reach. But with humanity's newfound power came uncertainty. No one knew just how far these abilities could take them, or how much control they had over their own strength. General Sarah Lawson stood in the heart of Earth's military command center, overlooking a vast holographic map of the planet. The once impregnable blockade of the unknown invaders still surrounded Earth. The enemy ships hung motionless in orbit, as if waiting for something, waiting for humanity to make a move. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice steady but tinged with anticipation. "It's time to show them who we really are." Darius Kell, standing beside her, scanned the latest intel from the front lines. "Our forces are ready, but we're dealing with an enemy that's unlike anything we faced before. These invaders are more advanced than the Xantari. Their weapons are untested against our best defenses. But they're not invincible," Ava Hargrove replied, her tone sharp. "We've already seen the cracks in their armor. They may have superior technology, but we have something they don't: human ingenuity. And we have these abilities, these untapped powers that the Xantari never wanted us to discover. Now, we need to use them." Sarah nodded. "We'll hit them hard. We'll make them regret underestimating humanity." At the command center, troops were finalizing their readiness, and the new generation of super-powered soldiers, like Alina Kerr, were prepared for the fight ahead. Alina had become a symbol of humanity's potential. Her electromagnetic powers were a testament to what could be achieved if they pushed beyond their limits. Her success had inspired countless others, and now the first wave of empowered soldiers, each with their unique abilities, stood ready to join the battle. The resistance had adopted a two-pronged strategy. The first wave would consist of elite super-powered soldiers, those who had unlocked their latent abilities, while the second would focus on conventional forces armed with advanced human weaponry. Together, they hoped to create a coordinated assault on the invaders' fleet, striking at their weak points with precision. The countdown began. Tensions mounted as troops prepared to depart. There was no turning back now. As the first wave of human soldiers launched their assault, they approached the invaders' massive ships with a determination that burned brighter than any laser weapon. Alina, leading the charge, concentrated hard as she extended her arms. Waves of energy pulsed from her fingertips, disrupting the invaders' shields and sending ripples of chaos through their ranks. Other soldiers followed suit, some controlling the elements, others manipulating energy or even tapping into enhanced physical abilities to breach the enemy's lines. It was an awe-inspiring sight. Humanity, once defenseless in the face of advanced alien threats, was now wielding powers that could rival the most advanced technologies of their enemies. But the invaders weren't backing down. Their ships retaliated with devastating force. Energy weapons fired from above, cutting through Earth's atmosphere like knives. Massive drones descended, sweeping across the surface, laying waste to human cities with precision strikes. The invaders had come prepared for a long and brutal war, but humanity's response was unlike anything they expected. Sarah, watching the battle unfold from the command center, gritted her teeth. "Keep pushing. They're stronger than we anticipated, but they're not invincible. We can do this." On the ground, the super-powered soldiers, now at the forefront of the battle, fought valiantly. Elena, her powers crackling with energy, was everywhere at once, disrupting enemy drones, knocking out shields, and striking fear into the invaders who had assumed they were the dominant force in the galaxy. She could feel the power coursing through her body. Each wave of energy she unleashed propelling her forward. But even as they made significant gains, the invaders revealed their true strength. Suddenly, a new wave of ships appeared, larger and more intimidating than before. These were no ordinary craft. They were massive warships brimming with advanced weapons, and they carried something far more terrifying than any human had seen before. From within these ships emerged colossal mechanical beasts, towering over the battlefield like titans. These massive constructs were armored and armed with devastating energy cannons, capable of leveling entire cities with a single shot. The Resistance's initial wave had broken the invaders' defenses, but this new threat brought a feeling of dread to everyone fighting. The stakes had just been raised. "We've underestimated them," Darius muttered, his eyes scanning the horizon. "But we can't back down now. Humanity's future is on the line. We can win this." And as the invaders' war machines thundered forward, humanity, empowered by their latent abilities and their unyielding resolve, surged forward in kind. The battle was only just beginning, and no one knew how it would end. But one thing was certain. This time, humanity was no longer the underdog. This time, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that they won. The battle raged on above Earth, the sky filled with fire and chaos as human forces and the invaders clashed in a struggle for the future of the planet. The invaders, now revealed to be an ancient and nearly invincible species, had unleashed their most terrifying weapons, massive warships and colossal mechanical titans. They were unlike anything humanity had faced, their power seemingly unstoppable. But what the invaders didn't count on was the unyielding will of humanity, the power they had unlocked from within their very genes. The newly empowered human soldiers, each with unique abilities, fought fiercely in ways the invaders hadn't anticipated. Elena Kerr, her electromagnetic powers surging, cleaved through enemy drones, while others manipulated the elements or bent energy to their will. The Resistance had proven to be more than just survivors. They were becoming warriors, stronger than ever before. Yet, as humanity pushed forward, the invaders adapted, growing more ruthless. Their war machines advanced, each new wave of attacks pushing humanity's forces to the brink. The balance of the battlefield teetered on a knife's edge. Sarah Lawson, watching from the command center, knew they couldn't afford to falter now. "We've come this far," Sarah said, her voice full of determination. "We are not going to let them take our home. We push forward, no matter the cost." On the ground, the super-powered soldiers continued to strike back at the mechanical titans, their efforts just beginning to make an impact. But for every invader that fell, another seemed to take its place, a never-ending tide of destruction that threatened to overwhelm them. Humanity had unlocked their true power, but was it enough? Elena, exhausted but resolute, found herself face to face with one of the massive war machines. The ground shook beneath her as it advanced, its hulking form casting a shadow over the battlefield. She could feel the energy within her surge, but it wasn't enough. The enemy's shields were too strong. She was on the verge of giving up when a sudden surge of power filled her body, more than she had ever felt before. It was a strange feeling, as though something deep within her was calling out, guiding her, urging her forward. She closed her eyes and focused, tapping into a wellspring of power she didn't fully understand. She raised her hands, and for the first time, she felt the full extent of her abilities. She wasn't just manipulating electromagnetic fields. She was becoming them. Energy exploded from her fingertips, a wave so powerful it cracked the invaders' shields and sent the mechanical titans staggering. Elena was no longer just a soldier. She was the embodiment of humanity's strength, a living testament to their untapped potential. "We can win this," Elena shouted to her fellow soldiers, a renewed fire in her eyes. "This is our time." At that moment, across the battlefield, humanity's forces began to rally. The super-powered soldiers, guided by their newfound powers, surged forward with a ferocity they had never known. Alina's energy wave had created an opening, and the human forces exploited it to the fullest. Drones fell from the sky, warships were torn apart, and the massive titans, once thought invincible, began to crumble under the weight of humanity's relentless assault. But as the tide began to turn in humanity's favor, a final, desperate move from the invaders sent shockwaves across the battlefield. A massive warship, larger than anything they had seen before, descended from the heavens, its weapons primed to unleash a cataclysmic blast capable of wiping out entire cities. Sarah, watching from the command center, knew they had no time to stop it. "This is it," she said softly. "We can't afford to lose." In a final act of desperation, Alina, her powers at their peak, sprinted toward the descending warship, her mind filled with only one thought: save Earth. She had unlocked everything she could, tapped into the very core of her power, and now she would give everything to protect her world. As the warship's cannons charged, Alina reached out with all of her might, her hands crackling with raw energy. The sky above her shimmered as she concentrated, weaving her electromagnetic abilities into a focused beam of power. With a scream of defiance, she released the energy, sending a torrent of force that collided with the warship's core. The explosion was deafening. A blinding light engulfed the battlefield as the warship was obliterated, sending shockwaves rippling through the atmosphere. Alina, her body drained of energy, collapsed to the ground, her vision fading. The battlefield fell silent for a moment. Then, slowly, humanity's forces began to cheer. The tide had turned. The invaders had been defeated. As Sarah and the rest of the resistance watched from the command center, they knew that Earth had been saved, not by advanced technology or overwhelming firepower, but by the very essence of humanity. It was their will to survive, their unity, and their untapped potential that had made the difference. The invaders, realizing they could no longer win, began to retreat, their forces scattered and broken. Humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, they would never be defeated. They had fought for their home, for their future, and they had triumphed. Sarah stood tall, watching the retreating enemy ships. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We've fought for Earth today, but tomorrow we'll fight for the stars."